realize. And our very first keynote is just on that topic, as we discuss how authentic storytelling can help women leaders rise to greater heights. Our speaker, Anisha Motwani, delves into how authentic storytelling empowers women leaders to break barriers and redefine success. Anisha is a multifaceted business strategist and the managing director of SCN Ventures. She's also the author of a national best-selling book, Storm the Norm. For those of you who have your copies, people have already done a round of autographs, but the rest of you, she will be around if you want to get an autograph, you want pictures. So this book is a first-of-its-kind collection of contemporary stories of truly inspiring businesses and brands from India that either wrote or rewrote the norms of their respective industries. In recognition of her achievements, she was voted as one of the 50 most powerful women in Indian business by Business Today for 3 consecutive years. She has also been recognized amongst the top 50 women in media, marketing, and advertising by Impact and Colors for 4 consecutive years. She's been named the Women at Work Leadership Award by Asian Confederation of Business and an award by NDTV, amongst many others. This is such an honor to have you here, ma'am. This conversation will be moderated by Lord Matthias, business strategist and angel investor. In previous corporate roles, he was the president and CMO of Tata Teleservices, country director for Motorola, executive VP, marketing, and category director for PepsiCo India and South Asia. So with a huge round of applause, can we welcome Anisha on stage for the first keynote of day 2 at the media track? Another round of applause. Come on, guys. Keep it going.
All right. Good morning. It's good to be the first speaker of the day. While I'm going to come back again after lunch, and I hope the energy is going to stay the same. And thank you, Snehal, for that very lovely introduction. Snehal spoke about my first book, Storm the Norm, but today, this is the new book. It's about many of you people sitting here. It's stories of people like you. She storms the norm. And this is a COVID baby. The real challenges that women faced during COVID was almost visible. I was one such woman in a house, where for the first time I experienced kids studying from home, husband working at home, and me also working at home, but I just didn't work at home. I did so many other things. And whether there was a doorbell ringing, or whether it was bhabhi ji sabzi kya banaun, or 50 rupiya ka chutta de do, the amount of times, that it just was so natural for them to come to me and not go to anybody else in the house, be it my kids or be it my husband, is what inspired me to write this book. Okay? And then I realized my first book was Storm the Norm, about 20 businesses that stormed the norm. And I said, women actually have been facing norms and the so-called stereotypes, questioning, and challenging the gender stereotypes all their lives. Let me write about some real life stories, about real women, authentic stories, about how they have managed to challenge these norms. I knew how I had done it, but I also wanted to capture some real stories. So from across walks of life, there's 17 of them in this book, and we will do another session which will be about those real women. They'll be coming here, 2 of them are coming here. We'll do that in the second half. But for this session, what I wanted to do was, I wanted to take out some interesting nuggets and insights, okay? Not necessarily from the book, but also from my personal experience, and talk about them here. Because keeping the audience in mind, I said it would be relevant if I give you the gist of, what made some of these women successful. And some of these are very small tips and tricks, okay? So this session is going to be So this This session is going to be in 2 parts. I'm going to just do a quick 15-minute. Please don't blame me if I'm sounding rushed because that's the time slot that's been given. And then we'll have a conversation with Lloyd. And I do want to leave the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes for questions because this is a topic that actually resonates with all of us. All the women sitting here in this in this room, including some of the men, because change doesn't happen, if there's just one hand clapping from one side. So yes, so I do want to keep that time. So in the interest of time, at the cost of sounding rushed, I'm just going to go straight into, what I'm going to speak about. And like I said, there were many things that are there in the book that one could learn about. But the topic that I picked up was she storms the career norms. Now, career doesn't mean professional. Career doesn't mean job norms. It means anybody who wants to be successful in their working lives. Okay? And there's some 10 very simple, practical tips and tricks that can help people scale the corporate ladder, and some of them coming from my personal experience. Yeah. So with that, let me just get into moving the slides. The first 5 slides are more about. First, we need to be pretty clear about what do we want from our jobs, okay? And then we'll know what tricks to deploy or what tips, and suggestions that one can come in handy. Now, understanding whether you want a job or you want a career is something that is very important, okay? And there's a big difference between the two. One simple trick that you can deploy to say whether you're in a job or a career is how eager you are for the day to end at workplace. Okay? If you are like really frustrated and saying, "Bahut ho gaya, what time am I?" You keep looking at the watch and saying, "I need to now leave," whatever, looking at all kinds of excuses. Traffic will increase, but all those are excuses. But if you're looking at the watch and you wanted this thing, you are in a job. Okay? But if you're so engrossed with what you're doing, you're having fun, time just flies by, you know you are on the right path to career. And very often, and I have a daughter your age, very often you realize that they think they are in for the job or the career, but there are many, many, many women who are basically looking, I want to be financially independent. Okay? Now, it is an outcome of both. Even a job will pay you, even a career will pay you. But the important part is that your motivation? Okay? Many of these I'm not going to talk about in detail. I'm just going to leave them as thought starters in your head. Okay? It's important that you introspect on these things. Now, another thing, where I see a lot of dropouts happen is when you see that women are not getting linear growth. Okay? I have not moved the ladder up from a manager to a senior manager to a general manager to a VP to a whatever. Technically, I have seen that growth actually equally important, and if it is not for you, is to actually look at horizontal frameworks. I did a horizontal. I switched 3 industries. I switched departments. I switched roles. I realized that, each time I used to come close to a CEO position in 3 different industries. Once, I made it as a CEO in an ad agency. Okay? I realized that I did not last for 6 months. I realized that's not for me. I can't just do the managing people job. I want to do things, I want to actually do something constructive where I can make a difference. So I'm not saying CEOs don't make a difference. By the way, don't get me wrong. There are but they make sure others get it right. Here, I wanted to get it right. So horizontal growth is equally important. You need to get that sorted out in your head. What is your career path? Both of them are viable choices. I'm not going to get into the details of this. The other thing, I must tell you about my story. Did you choose the road or did the road choose you? It's almost like my career choice is a default choice. Okay? Because maybe I wanted to start work somewhere, I managed to get a break and I joined. Or I want to do something exciting, and in the startup world here in Bangalore, you keep pivoting your startups, okay? So it could just be I want to start something, this seems exciting, little time later you realize, no, something else seems more exciting. So different phrases, but the application and the thought is still the same. You did not choose me, but I chose you, okay? It happened in my case. I'm a small town girl born and brought up in Ajmer, came to Delhi, got married in an arranged marriage, came to Delhi. I'd finished my MBA, finished my education. I was at my marriage reception in Delhi. My husband was in a job in LML. LML scooters, anybody heard of LML scooters? Yeah, he was with LML scooters. So his boss comes and he says, I know you will look, you've done your MBA, I'm sure you're going to look for a job, but till such time we have a small in-house agency, advertising, called Srishti Advertising, and would you like to come and work? So in advertising. And so I said, all the practical constraints. I wanted to join FMCG, stuff like all the practical constraints. New to Delhi, my husband drives to the office, I'll go with him, I'll come back with him, they were in the same premises, okay? So, also, let me figure it out and see till I find something better. All practical constraints, and I took up advertising. Believe you me, I had so much joy. I had so much joy in that industry. In 14 years, I was the CEO of one of the largest agencies there. And then I moved to the other side. So it's important that sometimes, even if the career is by default, how do you make the most of it? How do you actually, see, this is a very elitist view that today I have a plan, I have a vision, and I will actually get to that path. Very few people, statistics tell you that only 10% people get to actually at the start of the career, okay? Over the course of time, through various life stages, you do manage to get there. But when you begin, there are many, many other circumstances and contexts that you need to keep in mind for you to reach that ultimate destination. And at each stage, how do you make the most of it? There's something that is common to each of the moves that you make, whether you are in the right job or whether you're in the wrong job or whether you're in a transit job, is how do I use that to my advantage, to my learning? Okay, how do I make the most of it? So it's important that you get that right. Another thing, do you feel guilty about, constantly feeling guilty about balancing personal and this thing? This is, I can spend an hour talking about this. And I tell everybody, this whole work-life balance thing is such a myth. Okay, there is no such thing as work-life balance. Absolutely not. Whoever's telling you is actually just hasn't experienced it. I have worked 38 years and I can tell you at various points in time, I have managed to balance only, a few things of my life and not everything that I really want to balance. Okay, work life is a choice. It's a conscious choice that I made to work, and I have to align myself to that choice. Just a little story about myself. When I was finishing my MBA, typical those days, my father, small town, you have to get married, arrange marriage, looking for, all the rishtas and everything. And the only two conditions that I put was, I don't want to get married in a small town because I was born and brought up in a small town, because I will not get a good career opportunity in a small town. And the second thing that I told him is, he should, whoever, that family, I didn't even say he, that family should allow me to work. Okay, if they don't allow me to work, then, I'm willing to compromise with, what salary he earns and stuff like that, but these are two of my conditions, and then go ahead and look. And so I also cut it out at saying not below the top 5 metros or something, I included one beyond the 4 metros. So, his search also became narrow, and, I got married in Delhi. So, some of these things, it's important. I made that choice. Even before I got married, I made that choice. It was my choice to get a husband living in Delhi who would allow me to work. Okay? This whole thing about job and career, in many ways, this point is linked to the first point that I started off with, Who are you at work? Sometimes what happens is, you realize that you are in a job that brings the worst side of you. Okay? It doesn't bring the friendly side of you. It brings the irritable side of you. It brings the stressed out side of you. You go home, you are then a different person, but you come to work, you are a different person. Sometimes you come to work and you realize, that you actually are having a lot of fun. You're socializing, you're enjoying yourself, you're meeting colleagues, and you feel energized at work. So if that is happening, you feel like you're a different person at work and different person outside, then you know that you are not in the right place. Yeah. So like I said, these are some few understandings that you need to have of your own career. And this is the last one on that before I come to the tips that I have, What is your operating zone? Anybody seen this slide before? No? So, okay, I'll just tell you quickly about this. One is, on one axis is ability, my ability to do something well, okay? My ability. And on the second side is challenge. Ability is skill. My ability, my skill, whether I can do it or not. And the second one is challenge, okay? How challenging is my job? Just two simple axes. What you realize is, if you are an accountant, say, if you're into finance, okay? You master that skill after many years of working so much that you can do it even in your sleep, okay? There's no challenge left in your job. Even in my sleep, I can do the job that I'm doing, okay? So ability is immense, but the challenge is zero, okay? In some other job, I'm in a job which is so challenging for me that I don't have the ability. I'm constantly struggling to, to up myself because that's not me, that's not my strength, that's not my ability, that's not my skill. So I'm constantly challenging myself. If you have any of these, if it is a low challenge, okay, and if it is high ability, you'll get extremely bored. I'm doing this even in my sleep, okay? If you get very high challenge and very low ability, you're constantly in a stress zone. I'm constantly feeling stressed out. The best stage is when you can get the right blend of ability and challenge. I know how to do this, but it is still not routine. There's something new to learn. There's something new I'm doing. Are you doing that in your jobs or careers? Are you creating a new challenge each time you've mastered something? Then you are in a flow. Then you don't need to constantly look outside. Yeah? So just remember this. Are you in a flow? Are you in a boredom zone? Are you in a stressful zone? In wherever you are. Yeah? So this is the context in which now, now is the fun part. And like I said, we have another 5 minutes. Okay. So now's the fun part. I'll just take 30 seconds. I'll just give you 10 tips that I used, to scale this thing. And like I said, yes, it can be climbed in heels. Okay. I still wear heels. It still makes me feel good, if I have a little height. So the first one is, of course, this is a little boring one. It's like overcome the self-limiting beliefs. The fishermen know the sea is dangerous and the storm terrible, but have never found these dangers sufficient reason for remaining ashore. Yeah? This whole thing of whether I can do it or I can't do it, okay? It's so self-limiting. It's so self-limiting. Half the problem starts in our own head. We start assuming that this is not for us, okay? And many chapters in the book are about, how these women first, overcome their own limitations, before doing anything else in the outside world. Act like a leader before you become one. Always act one level above your current. When there are 10 people contending for the role, the one who gets picked is the one who's already demonstrated the ability to be ready for that role. But this should not come at the cost of compromising your current, okay? Do your current well, but act and behave. In a conference room, when there are 5 people speaking, what you say, is it a little more, leader-like, or are you just connecting and just saying things about what you're expected to say? Yeah? Get to know your boss. Better still, make him look better. How many of you people, most of the growth comes from, everybody has some kind of a boss somewhere, okay? It's not about, how many people would even know, what the boss's family looks like, how many children do they have, do you even wish a happy birthday, or just walk in and say, oh, by the way, it's your wife's birthday. It is politically incorrect to say these things, but it works. It has always worked. Okay? Oh, by the way, your kid's exam, how are they coping up? Little things like these, Oh, I have a media interview coming up. Would you like to come with me? Oh, bosses love to be in front of the camera. They don't like, I could be the media head in an organization, but it's best that you give them a chance first. These are little things, but they go a long way in making you, move up the ladder faster. Look for white spaces. White spaces means, see, there are areas in an organization or in a company that nobody wants to use or nobody wants to do, okay? And those, you identify them and, and you say, I mean, for each of these, I've got three examples that I can give either from my own life or from the book. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to dwell on it. Maybe, some of you should read the book. So look for white spaces. The minute you identify that white space, it comes your way, and that's an additional role that's come your way. You've already moved one step forward. Keep a running file of your accomplishments. And find a very subtle way of talking about it. Oh, by the way, client sends you a nice email. Oh, by the way, the client sent me this. Some little subtle ways of making sure that your achievements, and women need to do this more than anybody else. I have no qualms about saying it. Okay? So you guys, please just don't underestimate your accomplishments and your achievements. You yourself first have a rooster of it. Make sure you find the right spots and the right moments to just drop it. Okay? Nobody else is otherwise going to come and discover. Raise your hand. Always, always. See, success is not achieved by hands in the pocket. Anybody with hands in the pocket and strolling around and assuming people will actually come and give it to you on a platter, it won't happen. Raise your hands more often than not. But make sure you're talking sense and not. Dress for success. It really works. It really, really works. Nobody likes a sloppy, hanging here and there with low energy, uninteresting people. We don't even like them as friends. As neighbors, do we even connect with such people? We want to connect with interesting people. They look smart, okay? They act smart. They say interesting things. Become an interesting person who is well presented. I'm not saying wear designer wear. That's also the other extreme. Oh, by the way, she's so faffy. She's all the time just coming in these designer clothes. Substance to kuch hai nahi. More often than not, you will keep hearing these things, okay? So please dress appropriately. And then these are real things. At a board level, I sit on the boards of many, many companies. At a board level, I have a board colleague who says, she's one of the owners of the company, promoters of the company. She wears a lot of jewelry in a board meeting, okay? And I was surprised that, before we were getting into the board meeting, we were in the same hotel having breakfast. Oh, it's just so distracting. Why does she wear so much jingle on her? Look at her. You're not looking at the substance. She's created such a huge organization, billion-dollar organizations. She's running such a large show. Instead of looking at that, all that you're bothered about is she's wearing so much jewelry. But you can't stop it. That's the reality. Together, collectively, that's what this book is trying to do. Collectively, how can we make a difference? One step at a time. Self-advocacy, I said, keep a roster of your accomplishments. See, you have to give yourself the right to earn success. We keep waiting for permissions. Somebody will come and, make me succeed. No. In fact, more often than not, even if you're capable, success will deny you. If you've not inched your way forward, if you've not raised your hands, if you've not given yourself the right to succeed, if you've not spoken about your accomplishments. Oh, this is my favorite slide. And I can, like I said, another full session I have done on this. I have a slide on each of these kinds of office politics. In every office, you have a whisperer. And the name itself is enough to tell you what it means. I'm not getting into the details, like I said. The credit thief. Heard of credit thief? How many of you have experienced credit thieves? Oh my God. The climber at the cost of somebody else. The lobbyist, constantly lobbying. Constantly lobbying. You will find them at coffee tables, water coolers, smoke breaks, conference rooms. The controller. I know it all. I told you so, I know it. And the donation seekers. That's an interesting one, but The donation seekers are, सब कुछ free में करवा लो हमसे. Okay? Do it for me. I mean, I know, but just do me a favor, no? Please, man. I mean, you'll have to leave your work and do me a favor, no? Do this for me, no? And the last one from me. Ambition. Ladies, please, ambition is not a dirty word. It's a very, very positive word. It gives you wind in your sails. It's a propeller. Be ambitious, but be clear about what you want, a job or a career. And then use these small, small things. It's all about being practical. So that's it from my side before I get lawyered up. Thank you.
Thanks, Anisha. That was an interesting, lots of learnings I could say for all genders. There was a handful of guys in the room, and I think we were taking as many notes. Just a quick point, and to start with, why did you call it storm the norm? Is there a belief that women have to make double the impact in an organization to make it, right? Why storm the norm? Yes, please.
Can I just read 2 paragraphs?
Sure, please.
Then you'll know why storm the norm.
Sure.
Yeah? Is it okay? This is an anti-introduction. Usually books begin with a brief note that orients the reader towards the ideas that the author wants to explore. However, this book requires disorientation, and for us to hold an inside-out mirror to the constructs we take for granted. When I was growing up, there was a popular joke about how a doctor and a nurse were stranded on a deserted island. 9 months later, they had a baby. But the doctor was not the father of the baby, and the nurse was not the mother. So how did that happen? Correct. If you're still wondering, the doctor was the mother and the nurse was the father. Back in the day, it took anyone several minutes to work out this possibility, if they got there at all. And yet, once it is explained, it seems so obvious, so simple, so logical, that we wonder how we could have missed it the first time. There's a popular meme that shows how men can spot a sniper 400 meters away amidst a thicket of trees in a game of paintball, but are unable to see a bottle of ketchup that is right before their eyes in the fridge. In many ways, this is the fitting metaphor for the book that I have written. She storms the norm.
Lovely.
We've cornered Lloyd now.
Since we're in a minority, let me hit back. So, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here and just get to the point that, is it a myth that women have to work twice as hard to make it? And I'm kind of speaking in a corporate sense in a way, because let's be honest, right? Within the confines, within this Happiest in India, I think a lot of women in the corporate world have the benefit of domestic help, hopefully a mom or a mom-in-law to take care of the kids. So are we overstressing this, right? And the reason I'm saying so, and Anisha, you know this, there are lots of places, thanks to DEI, where there is a dearth of women, right? You sit on boards, as I do, and the biggest challenge in most boards is how do we get those 2 women directors in, right? And what is often called the golden skirt syndrome. There are like these 40 women who are well known, one of whom is here, and you can't do more than 8 boards as per the law. So in a lot of ways, companies are falling over each other trying to get enough women. So are we overplaying this hand?
So, Lloyd, you answered it. My reason, my break for getting on the board was being a woman. I have no qualms about saying it. There was a diversity quota and they wanted women on the board, and I got my first break. Out of the many boards that I am on today, I'm saying 50% of them have come to me because I'm a woman. 50% of them. For the same skill, for the same skills, if I was not a woman, even the board seat would have gone to a guy, okay? And that's why the golden skirt syndrome that you're talking about. So right up to this level, having worked almost 38 years, I'm telling you, at each stage, one has had to try much harder. Every stage, to the extent that when I write about, are you the same person at work or at home, I realize that, you start wearing pants even if you don't need to. I mean, metaphorically, I'm saying, you need to speak louder, you become more aggressive to be heard. I realized I got into the habit of repeating everything 2 times because I realized first time to koi mujhe sunega hi nahi, nobody's going to hear me down. So personality starts changing because to be heard, to be seen, to be, recognized, to showcase your achievements, each time I'm telling you, I've had to work 2 to 3 steps harder. I don't know about Bangalore, which is a lot more progressive and visible, but up in North India, where, in Gurgaon, Delhi, I have been through this all my life. It still is true, Lloyd.
Okay, so thank you for being so candid, and I think I respect that completely. Have you personally faced a lot of chauvinism?
Little bit of what life also teaches you is a little bit of diplomacy. When you sit on so many boards, you don't want to talk about some of these things. But yes, I don't want to get into specifics, but many times. I wanted a certain role, which was a more, market-facing role. I was not given because I was told it requires a lot of whining and dining, Anisha, with these big honchos, you won't be able to do it. Why did you assume I won't be able to do it, So yes, I have faced it.
So wouldn't you just go up and, call it out, tell your boss that, hey, I'm good for this, I can do it.
I did that, Lloyd. But I said I'm good for that, I'm willing to take a chance and experience it. But I was told, no, we can't take that risk. And also the other thing was, they will not take you seriously. So it's not that I can't do it. The people who I had to interact with, will not take me seriously.
Okay, I want to get to another point that I'm often told women have to confront, is that they work off a 4-cornered quadrant, right? Self, what about me? Then there's family, then there's work and career and such like. And then the fourth is, your kind of passion, so to speak, right? Whereas for guys, family is ostensibly sort of taken care of, right? So you focus on career, focus on self, go to the gym, do your good stuff, and focus on your passions. Do you think that's increasingly true in today's environment? Is it a 3-cornered kind of conundrum for guys versus 4 for women? And to what extent is it changing?
So, that's true. This is gender agnostic. We've got only 4 quadrants in our life, okay? One is family, okay? One is profession, job. One is self, and one is your children, okay? Social. So family is, children are in the family. Now, at any given point in time, in a 24-hour day, and that's why I say work-life balance is such a myth. In a 24-hour day, you have to sleep 8 hours, okay? The normal chores is another 2 hours, 10 to 11 hours at the work. That leaves you with just 2 to 3 hours in the day, on a normal day. Either you can socialize, okay, or you can actually, do things off for yourself, which is this thing. Those are the 2 that get always compromised or traded for. I remember when kids were growing up, I stopped socializing completely. I used to just come back home because that's the only thing I could manage. So social life was 0. Even today, if somebody because, my children were born very early into the marriage, I cannot socialize after 10 o'clock at night. Because I've got into that habit of coming home, switching the light off because the kids would not sleep, and sleeping with them. And that habit has stayed with me, and I cannot. After 10 o'clock, people just tell me, I've changed many jobs, that, Anisha is the last person to enter and first person to leave, but that got conditioned into me. Okay? And the last thing that one would do is do something for your own self. That, I think, like you and I were talking, at this life stage, later on, at some point in time, when you start touching 50s, you realize how important health is. You keep taking it for granted, you keep focusing on your children, your career, and then you keep compromising it. But I noticed the change today because my children are very health conscious. So today's youngsters are becoming self-conscious. They are investing in themselves. But something or the other gets compromised. And that's the constant dilemma of, what to give up for what.
The last point I just want to get to, Anisha, is that, and you covered a little bit of it in your 10 tips, is that the general sense is, and I'm saying this as a compliment, is that women tend to be far more intuitive, far more empathetic, and therefore are able to, look at a lot of spaces that typically get missed out. Years ago when I used to work with PepsiCo, my super boss was Indra Nui, but she'd come to a visit to India, and I flew a small stretch with her in a corporate jet, and this is back in 2004, and she had a satellite phone, and Indra, seated next to me, made a 20-minute call to, ostensibly, and she told me about it, an American woman, about what a lovely guy her son is and XYZ. At the end of the call, she turned around and winked and said, there's a very famous analyst back then who used to analyze PepsiCo stock, and she was singing praises to this shark analyst who tracks PepsiCo stock about what a lovely guy he is to his mother. And guess what? I mean, his mom's going to say that, Indra Nui, CEO of PepsiCo, called me and said, you're such a great guy. And Monday morning, he's going to get an analyst call, trying to figure out why Pepsi didn't have a great quarter, right? I think some of these intuitive things, and I'm not saying it's peculiar to women, blew our mind. I remember a lot of us talked about it and said, hey, that's, partially Indian, and I think partially a woman's intuition. So I would also say that organizations are recognizing that women bring a lot of deep empathy, and that's something a lot of workplaces lack, and we've seen a lot of it specifically through the pandemic. So do you think that's an advantage that women can play up, and that's something that they really can bring significantly to the workforce?
No, yeah, clearly complementary skills, because I always tell, women that don't try and be a man, you have your own unique skills, and that's what you need to play up. And if your skills are being caring, being nurturing, there's a flip side to this as well. I'll come to that in a minute, but that's what our strength is, our intuition. With children, we have so much intuition with our children. We know that the kid is actually troubled or something, because that's mother's intuition. Biologically, that's how our brains are wired to work. So yes, absolutely, women have their own unique skills. No need trying to replicate and be a man. Let the men do the men's job. See, women, have you ever heard any excuse you've heard of why men can't multitask and women can? I mean, you hear, women are constantly multitasking, but try telling your husband that, to do 3 things in parallel or even 2 things in parallel, you will get a retort back. Okay? My machine, I'm not a superhuman being, but you are, your spouse is a superhuman being. So I'm saying, so yes, you have your own unique skills, play them up. But one other thing that I do want to, since you talk about empathy and care, is this whole thing of women being accused of breaking down. The number of times in a performance appraisal review I have cried, okay? Because we just can't control our tears, and that was taken against me, Lloyd, because for I have worked hard the whole year. I'm being given a feedback, but I don't have the resilience to hold my tears, to be able to make that point without getting emotionally this thing. Now, that's the extreme of being the softer one. Now, those are also things that are not correct, I mean, those are in hindsight things that we have learned to say that, no matter what, be prepared, don't let your emotions show at the wrong place. Whereas it's considered as a virtue today for men to cry, but for women to cry, they are the complete men because they cry and so they show their emotions. But women, are like completely sissy if they start crying, and, I mean, they have no control. So yeah, I mean, so some of these things need to be balanced.
Thanks. The tide is turning. So Snehal is showing us no empathy whatsoever. She's giving us a dirty look saying this is time. Do we have time for just one question from the audience? Something, because obviously everyone's... So listen, any good question for Anisha or for, well, either of us? I can see the lady in the red jacket right here. You can take this mic.
No, Lloyd, go ahead. You can answer.
Hi. It was pleasure hearing you speak. My name is Zainab, and I come from Gapping, from Hyderabad. Before I come to the question, I would like to give you a little context about my own story. So like you said, my career happened by chance, and I started working after I had my baby. And I have stayed with the same organizations for close to 8 years now. And in the last 8 years,
Mother
while...
with 8 years of work this is how you look. Amazing. Kudos.
Thank you so much. So in the last 8 years, while the rest of the team, parted ways, they found new jobs, I kind of stayed back because my job, I found it really, I had the opportunity to pick up different roles within the organization. So what I personally felt is in the last 8 years, I was fortunate and grateful to get a lot of good work, and in the pursuit of doing that, I got promoted like 3 times in the last 8 years. But what I heard at the end of it is that one, maybe, they had no one better to get promoted. Number 2, maybe she's always in the right place at the right time. Number 3, maybe, she has right bosses. And number 4 is something that I'm not comfortable sharing. So, and if I look at a colleague from another team progressing at the same pace, he gets it because he deserves it, and that's a natural progression that he's having. So why do you think women generally who progress at a rapid stage generally are questioned about all of this and men are not?
So see, this is exactly like, it's such a beautiful experience, such a live, real today's this thing. 35 years back it was true, it is true even today. Okay, that is a fact, it is a patriarchal society in many ways, Lloyd, talks about he's one really, really equal husband, and he gives equally opposite examples of, how he and his wife, managed to live their lives. But that is the reality, it is because men need to change. And one of the things that one is also talking about is that women want to change, okay? Women have really changed. But the pace of change that men have kept is not the same. The only way that this change is going to come about is that we, with our children, the way I bring up my son, I taught my son cooking even before I taught my daughter, okay? What they experience at home, I have now started noticing it's their own daughters that are who are showing them the mirror. Okay, because their daughters are coming up in a new world in a new way, and they have been brought up by their mothers in a new way. And it is their daughters who are actually making them change. So what are we doing? And I do a lot of sessions in corporates on unconscious biases, where we get men in the room. Till these things don't get fixed, and together we need to work. Yesterday I was meeting somebody and he gave me an interesting tip. I keep looking for tips. So he said, one woman in the boardroom he was talking about, if you're only one, you'll find it difficult to be heard. You need at least 3 women in a group of 9. Okay, you need to have 30% of women together to make an impact. So if 30% of you come together, just keep that number, 30%. If you have to make an impact, 30% people need to make a hue and cry about this is not acceptable. Alone you'll do it, it becomes your personal battle. So that's the kind of change that we all collectively need to bring together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anisha. That was a lovely session. And thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We request you to stay on stage just for a minute. We have some goodies for you.
Unstoppable, our MO incomparable, the style, the skill impeccable. You know that's what we do. We about to turn it up a notch, better not be confused. No, we ain't stopping anytime soon.